that in mind, because this is it, and we also need some wrap-up statements.
I just want to thank the ministers for this consultation and also for their patience in listening to what we have to say. My name is Deepal Damani, and I am a former public servant with the Ontario Public Service. I left the Ontario Public Service 2 years ago because of what I felt was racial discrimination. When I went in, I had sort of thought I would have a 30-year career with the Ontario Public Service. I know I'm not alone in my experiences. I've spoken to many colleagues of mine that are in the OPS who have experienced similar experiences to me. Some of whom are still there, and some of them have moved on into other institutions or careers. I did want to throw some concrete ideas in terms of what the Ontario Public Service can do with regards to anti-racism, because I do think that is the first institution that we need to address, because we are the ones that develop the policies and programs. And I know, based on my experience, it'd be great to have an internal investigations office that looks into experiences of racial discrimination, or even a resource center or somewhere where someone who feels they're in that experience can go to. I know that would have been very helpful for me when I was with the OPS. I know that you do diversity and inclusion training for managers. I'm not sure, but I really do think that is key, because it is the policy and program analysts that are developing consultations, and that none of them asked questions around my experience as a racial minority. We need to be doing that within the Ontario Public Service as well, and have that feed into the anti-racism. I know as a policy program analyst, we'd often have a stakeholder list, but we really do need to diversify that stakeholder list. I think it's the sort of same old people that come to the table, and if we can empower our policy program analysts to diversify that stakeholder list, I think we'd have a lot of different voices at the table. Yeah, okay. So the last thing I'll end off with is did a town hall meeting. Since that town hall meeting, there has
much. My brother over here.
Good evening, Victor. Mr. Minister, systems, institutions in Ontario years, and then Obama came in power, but still the racism exists there every day, every single day. Like after 9/11, I went there as a trucker, and they stopped me and asked me, do you know where I've been not playing with him. How do I know? Over 5,000 people, innocent people. I said I agree. Making fun, entertaining. When are we going to go to Afghanistan? I said, you are going to kill innocent people too. But who's going to do something about racism? They're not going to do anything. UPS, United Parcels. I gone there for a driver job. They asked, this is our policy. We need the clean-shaven drivers. Right? So now it's okay. After so many years, I've seen 28 years, that the Sikh guys can be defense minister. Congratulations to someone who did that. I have seen the police in Peel use F-word. And the policeman charged my friend and his son, lawyer, who was lawyer. And he didn't care, because you are standing there, we need to charge you in trespassing.
Okay, wrap up, please.
Just 1 minute. Liberal government, including the premier, they promised, the whole government, Ontario government, they promised the Sikh community. And the last right, literally they did. And are we just talking about this racism thing? Are we just need to do the study and do it? It's not in the closed doors. We need to do these things. We need to. If you go to the Brampton, you will see what the police is doing. I think you should fire the police. I went to the police station for a gentleman who was from my community. He was but they don't care. That's the training we got with the police. So we need to.
In this room that don't feel it's a safe space, mainly because it's being taped and just. I want to compliment you in a way, Minister Koto. I worked on the Para-Pan Am Games, and that was probably one of the best experiences that I had. Aboriginal, there was a strong Aboriginal component. But there was another experience where I worked, and actually the lady, two people before me mentioned working within the government structure, where I had an opportunity to be at the table with one of your colleagues, and my boss at the time had mentioned to me that she felt dreads were dirty, and this was within a workplace. Didn't feel, I actually got reprimanded for confronting her about a question that was hurtful to people in the community. And you mentioned the Afrocentric school. I worked on that school along with Brother Sankofa, who spoke earlier. I was confronted again by one of my former colleagues within the government political side. of things, who said to me, well, you know that caused us a lot of problems, right? So for a job that I'd had in the past that, again, was involved within the community, I'm being reprimanded for it. I'm even being bullied for it. And I think she has a great point to make about having been there at one point, and sure, that was a while ago, things might have changed, but I'm just hoping that as you're hearing from all of us what can be done with agencies in other areas, I hope that you're also thinking about be my comment to you, but again, compliments for even putting this together and giving us an opportunity to speak on this. One quick last thing I'll say is that one of my elders in the back had mentioned that someone earlier had talked about not being able to get a place to rent. I kind of missed the comment, so it was a little while ago. She said as a black woman 51 years ago, this was a problem for her. So if we're talking about this then to now, are we going to be talking about this 51 years from now? So I just wanted to make sure her comment
Thanks for representing her voice.
And thank you very much.
Okay, so we're going to power through because we only have 10 minutes, okay? And that includes a minister.
Hello? Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Rita Nkitia. I'm a PhD student at York University in the Geography Department.
Sorry, sir, you cannot speak again.
My brother there spoke twice.
You will not be able to speak again tonight.
Right? And when we're talking about white supremacy, we're not talking about the KKK, right? We're talking about an entire system, an entire that privileges whiteness, right? That's what we're talking about. I think it's really important when we're talking to the public to drive that home, right? It's not necessarily about anti-racism, it's about white supremacy. It's about the violence that whiteness does, right? And it makes a lot of white people uncomfortable to have that conversation, but white supremacy, and we know this, right? We know this in our bodies, we know this through our own experiences. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. My sister.
Thank you. So I just want to ask you guys to look around the room, and I see some young people there in red. I want to acknowledge them.
Our youth ambassadors.
Because they're in this room. Our youth years ago, 24 years ago, my son was 5 in kindergarten. My husband and I, always make sure that we volunteer in the school just because we happen to have children of color. We want to make sure we're represented. And so one particular day we're in the school outside at an event. And at the time I worked with young offenders, and his teacher knew that. She comes over to my husband and I, and she says, as she saw 3 kindergarten black boys playing, and she says, Miss Ramsey, do you see those 3 boys there? They'll be coming to where you are next. Did you all hear me? And so I say this because the number one piece there, what do we get in the education system? I am not saying we've got great teachers, but we do have to make sure that we are represented. Because when these young people see people that look like them, just like my brother over there said, you need to feel good about yourself. We have to tackle this, and we have to do this together. And I know we can because all of us are here tonight, and you are here tonight. I want to thank you for that. My last piece is that this got to be about 11 months ago. The Peel Police Board had a vacancy on the Peel Police Board. We realized some the groups in our area, and actually the person that was black, that the board thought was black, happened to be from Africa, but she was South Asian. So you see. So anyways, we mobilized the community and had black people apply, and there was a black woman here she is representing. This is what we need to do. We need to make sure that people of color are represented in every single area. And that's what we can do immediately.
Great, thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you. And my sister, you have the last word from the floor this evening.
Hi there, my name is Rodina Mahabeshi. I want to say thank you to all the speakers, but especially the folks who pointed to intersectionality, because it is not entirely clear to me that this anti-Black racism and Islamophobia. And so many people have powerfully spoken to anti-Islamophobia in our community, so I'm going to focus now on, anti-Black racism, and I'm going to focus on Islamophobia, which is something I regularly hear about personally from my mother, a beautiful, elderly, Muslim woman who wears a hijab and regularly has people tell her to go back to her country, to which she proudly says, I'm Canadian, you can go back to your country and give this land back to Indigenous people. But I also, it feels to me that the government might be under the impression that Islamophobia left when Harper left the building, or that we're entirely distracted by the racist one-man circus down south, and Islamophobia is thriving. And recent data has even showed us that half of Ontario residents believe that Islam perpetuates violence, that the doctrine, the faith, centrally promotes violence. And so I want to know what the government is doing, not just to address the individual encounters, as some cities have taken on, 6 major cities in Canada have taken on eradicating anti-Islamic violence and have vowed to do that. But what is the government doing to disavow this behavior? What is the government doing to support Muslim communities, to make space for Muslim leaders? So I just want to leave the note that I think Islamophobia is alive and well, and sometimes when it's quietly thriving.
So thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to all of you who hung in there for the evening. Before I pass some common points that I heard this evening, I think one of them that was repeated was access in terms of location. And so that is something to consider for the planning of the next meeting in terms of how will the people who want to be there get there. Adequate funding was one. Folks talked about Black Lives Matter. Folks talked about the importance of accountability. Folks pointed out the gap between those who are in the system and those who are running the system. Folks talked about the importance of mandate and legislation. That was said multiple times, and so I think it's important to put an exclamation mark behind that particular point. Several folks talked about reestablishing the Employment Equity Act. Other folks talked about the importance of having a stratified, intersectional, race-based data, right? So that was also emphasized and underscored several times. One person talked about this, and I haven't heard this before. Can we have a scorecard? So like the way that hospitals do, where they have scorecard in terms of wait times, etc., can we have some sort of system or tool where we can track how we're doing and probably even make that public, I might add. Folks talked about the importance of not having police investigate police, the importance of having and making sure that boards that they're making decisions of the systems that rule their lives are also representative of us. One comment around the importance of having an advisory group with the extremely important system of the child welfare system in terms of Black kids and the impact there and their families. And also the importance of having systematic approach in terms of complaints and respondents. So ensuring that that is in place as well. Many other things were said. That's what I will say as I call the minister up. And thank you to the youth ambassadors for all your work tonight, and thank you to all of you for being here.